Cool intro sound.
Alright, how's it going? Wait, is this recording?
Nice intro.
Yeah. Alright, how's it going, guys? AlphaYGO back at it again, and today I got my pal Matteo here. He's a buddy of mine from locals. And tell me what you did recently, bro.
I decided it was a good idea to try playing Burning Abyss. I'm not gonna lie, like I saw the Dinh-Kha deck that is kind of similar to this. I took a couple of his stuff that he was playing and I kind of optimized it. I included a couple of the new cards as well. And I do think it is, this deck was definitely a lot better before the new set came out. Just because the meta was definitely 100% Eldritch and then like Adamantipator, which this deck absolutely floors completely.
It was like a control BA list, basically, right?
It is control BA. It runs, I think, I cut it down to a little less than 17 traps.
Okay.
Imagine actually playing trap cards. Wow.
Trap cards and BA. I don't know what format this guy's in, but
I'm
what
in this
exactly
format.
did you end up accomplishing?
I played a couple of tournaments. The main one I played was the Zodiac Tournament. Or was it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember the name of it. But I went
Yeah.
8-1.
And I was there for a couple of the matches. This guy actually 2-0'd a bunch of these people. And
Every round that I won at a 2-0, except for one of them. And then I lost one round.
yeah, but you basically went 7 W's, 1 loss at the very end of it, which
Yeah,
is
because
like
I had to
insane.
reset bracket in finals, so it's technically
Bro.
7-0.
Yo, that's basically an invite at a regionals.
I think it would be, yeah. Do you want to head into the cards I played?
Yeah, let's go.
Alright, obviously playing Dante Seer. Just full disclosure, I think I play 15 BA related cards, so like Rhino, Tour Guide, and the Burning Abyss monsters. Yeah, so I play 3 Skarm. This is probably the next most important behind these two. Honestly, just getting free tour guides is really nice, especially since it's at 2. You can recur multiple, which is really, really good. 3 Farfa. Really good disruption card. Sending it off Beatrice always feels good. Sending it off of Fiend Griefing especially. It's a little spoiler for some of the traps I'm playing. Fiend Griefing sends this thing and it's insane for 2 disruptions with 1 card. It's really good overall. I wouldn't cut down on either of those. I played 1 Libic. Good to get these 2 out of your hand if you draw them. I played 1 Alec, another thing to send off Beatrice. Pretty much, it's another just BA that I can free special if I need to. Played Barbar. It wasn't a timed tournament, but what I tried to do is if I was going to a tournament, what would I play? And I would play Barbar in a tournament, especially if time rules are in play.
Of course.
And then we have the 1 Calcab, another good Beatrice target. If they set a bunch of cards, you can Calcab a couple of them back during end phase. You can Unicorn spin them. But I'll tell you what I did against a lot of the control decks in a sec. It was really funny. Played 3 Rhino Warrior, 2 Tour Guide. Actually put into... Okay. don't. It's really good for everything that plays BA, but especially this one, being able to actually play multiple Skarms is really
Insane.
good. And then the final monster I played, it's not a hand trap, it's not Ash. You can play Ash in this deck if you really want to, but this card overperformed so hard that I'm actually considering putting it to 3. I played 2 Backjack.
Backjack.
Imagine unironically playing Backjack in 2020. This card... I didn't think this card was that good, but it overperformed so heavily. I'm considering putting it to 3. I don't want to brick on it is the problem. It is kind of bricky, and it's good to mill, and it's good to send from your hand off of some of the traps you play. But it can brick at 3, so I'm trying it, but I'm not so certain. I play 2 different spells. I play 3 Called By. Again, your tour guide getting hit sucks, and then going first, it's just another piece of graveyard interaction, and this deck really heavily punishes graveyard decks, and then obviously... Foolish Burial, probably the best card in the deck, if I had to say. This deck does go first, but I play 3 evenly in main.
3 evenly. Ooh, a little controversial topic here.
Well, it's kind of the same theory as like how Altergeist mains 3 evenly, even though they go first. It is like, it's a good discard fodder. It's just a card in hand for discard fodder, and you discard quite a bit in this deck. So worst case scenario, it's discard fodder. Best case scenario, it's blowing out an Eldritch player.
Yeah.
I blew out a lot of Eldritch players with Evenly, and I blew out a lot of like control players with Evenly in main deck because they don't search the counter trap game 1. So that was the main theory. Besides that, the other traps I played, Dynamiscus, 3 copies. It did really, really well, especially because it doesn't discard for cost. You can kind of bait interaction with it. The fact that it comes back from grave is also quite relevant, just for bodies, for making Boral Sword even. It's really good at that. You can't make Boral Sword with it, but you can make, you know, a Phoenix into Boral Sword, stuff like that, because it's a normal monster. And the other, I'll do this one first. I already kind of said I played this one. 3 Fiend Griefing. Card is insane in the Eldritch matchup. Insane in the Eldritch matchup. Insane in, like, Salamangreat against, it's good even against Mermail. Because if they pitch for cost, like a Dragoons off of Teus, with the new, at least on Dueling Book, this isn't confirmed for TCG yet, but you can shuffle this back and it won't trigger the Dragoons. I've done that a couple of times, and it worked out really nicely, because they have to activate in the place they trigger. So since it's no longer engraved, and since it's set for cost, then it does work. Another card that was basically for Eldritch and Salamangreat, 3 copies of Karma Cut. Another card that performed very, very well like yesterday. Card is really good in the Eldritch matchup.
What in the world?
I blew out an Eldritch player. I Dynamiscused one of his Golden Lords, and then I Karma Cutted the other 2. So he literally couldn't play the game.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
This next card needs some explaining. It's a new card from the new set.
Oh boy.
XYZ Revive Splash. Basically, this is like the spiciest part of this deck. Basically, you target Dante in your graveyard, and you special summon it, and it becomes a water monster. Usually you do that during end phase. You can do it during other times if you need blockers or if you need to trigger Dante again. That's fine, but usually you do it during end phase, and then on your next turn, you can banish it from your graveyard and just hard rank up into Bahamut Shark, and then summon Toad.
What big brain shenanigans have you been pulling off, bro? What the
Yeah,
fuck?
and then if you mill this card, you can use one of the cards in the extra deck to just go into Bahamut Shark anyways, because I do play a rank 3 water. Most people know what it is, but I'll get to that in a sec. The last trap I played was just Trap Trick. Just tutors every single trap in the deck. It's pretty insane. The restriction doesn't really come up because you can chain 2 Trap Trick with all the other spell traps. Honestly, Trap Trick is probably the thing you want to hit the most off of things like your Backjack, just because it's the most variety, right?
Yeah.
For extra deck, I played 2 Dante.
Of course.
Originally, this list played 3, but I wanted to make room for the Revive Splash package, so I cut 1 Dante, and I cut a Levianeer. And I also cut... What else did I cut? I cut Zeravoros as well. Zeravoros, I might put back in this. But for now, it's cut, and it's very close. The other card, obviously, you play the Beatrice, and I do actually play Purple Dante. A lot of decks like Eldritch have to waste a lot of resources to just out Beatrice without triggering the effect for Purple Dante.
Yeah.
And a lot of players don't think that you actually play Purple Dante, because you usually don't.
Yeah.
So a lot of them will blow it up anyways, and they'll think, oh, he's just going to summon a Cherubini or a Dante, it's not a huge deal, and then I summon Pilgrim. Purple Dante is actually a pretty big blowout card, especially since you play a very high number of Burning Abyss cards in this deck.
You just look at them like you've officially played yourself.
Indeed. Once you get Pilgrim running with your draws, you basically win the game. You just drown your opponent in card advantage every turn. For the Revive Splash package, I play the 1 Bahamut Shark, 1 Totally Awesome, and then another related card is Grampulse. So if you mill the Revive Splash, you can summon Grampulse and then rank it up the first turn. Another thing you can do is if they try and, like, if you Grampulse to pop a back row, and they chain, for example, like an Impermanence, you can chain Revive Splash and Grave to rank it up and it'll still go through. If you're under Skill Drain, for example, you can Grampulse, chain Trap, and it'll still resolve the Grampulse to pop the Skill Drain, or any other Floodgate as well. So that's a pretty cool interaction you can do. Obviously, I kind of probably should have done this before, but Cherubini.
Oh yeah, Cherubini. So with the inclusion of the Xyz Revive Splash package, right?
Yeah.
What are your first turn boards kind of looking like?
Revive Splash usually doesn't alter the first turn board. Usually it's for a very strong follow-up play.
Yeah.
Bahamut Shark, again, is just something that can get linked off for Boral Sword. Your whole thing is you're not trying to blow your opponent out of the water. It's just that you out-resource them.
No pun intended.
Oh god. Okay.
So I can imagine these are all back rows that also work well with your BAs to keep plussing. So it's kind of almost like Dino Paleo in a sense, it seems.
Yeah, kind of like that. Every single spell trap also could potentially trigger a beneficial effect through a discard or through Fiend Griefing.
Yeah. Obviously the only one oddball card is technically evenly, but again, I assume like for anyone who
Yeah.
wants to play this list, you can trade out evenly for
You
something
can
else. I'm
okay,
sure.
if you're gonna trade out evenly, you can play Lost Wind as well. Or if
Oh,
you don't
Lost
want to play
Wind,
the Bahamut Shark, you can play Lost Wind.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
if you mill it, it still gets value eventually. Most games, most matchups, it'll still get value eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this deck it's better than Impermanence. Again, depending on the meta. If
Depending on the
you
meta,
really
yeah.
need hand traps, you can play Imperman Ash. But this format isn't really like a hand trap format, really.
Yeah.
We
Evenly
got
is
some
sort
new
of a
decks,
meta
like,
call for Eldritch, right? I believe.
yeah, for Eldritch Emancipator and then just other control
Yeah.
decks I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, okay, nice.
Because
Alright,
a lot
sorry.
of decks just won't prioritize the counter trap. Yeah, so Cherubini, I just kind of glazed past it, but obviously it's one of the best cards in the deck. Usually not a part of your first turn play. Usually Dante
Yeah.
is your first turn play. You usually play very conservative on your first turn with your monsters, and then you can Cherubini next turn for a kill into Boral Sword pretty easily most of the time, if they can't
Awesome.
full clear your board. And then for our end board, we play IP Masquerena. Masquerena is on the end board with Beatrice. That's usually what you try and end on. You either end on Masquerena Beatrice or you end on Grav Controller Beatrice. So
Grav
those are your
Controller.
like two pretty normal end boards. You can end on some crazier stuff, but there's really not a reason to.
You said Gravity Controller's purpose is to like kind of just link away a random Dante in your extra deck zone, just to like.
Yeah.
plus
One
off
thing
it.
I will say for people playing this deck, always summon the Dante in the extra monster zone, unless your Grav Controller's already gone. Because
Okay,
if
yeah, that
they,
makes sense.
for some reason, like if they stop your Rhino, you want to be able to do something with the Dante, unless like you just don't want it sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I played all three Nightmares.
All three nightmares. Jeez. Okay.
The Nightmare package, it's really good, obviously. But just because this deck benefits so hard from the discards, I feel like playing all three is pretty good. A lot of people have been cutting the Cerberus, obviously, but I think it still does out some problem cards.
Yeah.
Funny enough, it outed 2 Dark Claws yesterday, but that's obviously
Hey.
circumstantial, but it does out, like, problem cards most of the time. The last thing I played, Trisbania. Oh, sorry, Boral Sword as well, but that's pretty obvious.
Trisbania and Boral Surf for the last two cards.
Boral Sword is probably, obviously, it's your kill option 99% of games. Trisbania, you can make it off the IP, and then you have a lot of ways in your back row to trigger it against something like Eldritch, Altergeist, anything that plays back row, really. So you have two very legitimate options for your IP. You can either go into the Unicorn, or you can go into the Trisbania.
Alright, yeah.
And even
Sounds
if you
clean.
can't trigger the Trisbania against a deck like Eldritch, you can just special a BA from hand. It will die, but it will still trigger the Trisbania.
Ooh,
Okay,
okay.
for the side deck, it's pretty standard. It's just 3 sphere mode. It's just for combo decks that I don't want to deal with. I played the 3 Cosmic. Most of this deck is just to kill the overwhelming Eldritch population, because it counters pretty much every variant. Hopefully,
Yeah.
I have a bunch of replays from the 8-1 tournament that I hope to put on the channel. Some of them are
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, some of them are kind of just stomps that aren't really going to teach you anything about the deck, but some of them are very interesting decks. Or
I'm interested.
like,
I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in the play-by-play. Yo,
yeah, if you guys
leave
want,
a comment down below if you
Yeah,
guys want to
yeah,
see
yeah.
them, bro.
I played anti-magic arrows. Again, another thing that just hard wins against control decks. You can anti-magic arrows them, and then you Trisbania them, and then they lose 9 times out of 10. Because what you can do is, if you draw anti-magic arrows and 2 Burning Abyss monsters, any 2 Burning Abyss monsters, or like Rhino or Tour Guide, special them, special Cherubini, starting to Graph Summon Seer, and then you link them for Trisbania, and then you Seer summon back any BA in your graveyard to trigger the Trisbania. And
Nice.
they can't use spell traps for the rest of the turn at all. So any engrave don't work, any on field don't work at all.
Yeah, it's a pretty big washout.
It's
Just
a really
let
big
you-
watch out against, again, control decks.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Things
is
like
pretty
Salmon
prevalent
Gray
right now
can
because of
blow out
Eldritch.
pretty hard as well. Yeah, it blows out things like Salmon Gray. It blows out a lot of stuff, honestly.
Awesome.
Obviously, like, this deck is tailor-made to be Eldritch, hence Karma Cut and all of the cards that say Banish on their card text. I played 3 Anti-Spell.
Ooh,
Anti-Spell
interesting.
kind of underperformed in the side deck. I didn't put it in too much.
Doesn't conflict with your strategy too much because you only run like 4 spells.
Play 3 quick plays and then Foolish Burial. Usually if you draw Foolish
Yeah.
Burial, you're using it on your first turn anyways.
Yeah.
If it conflicts with the strategy ever, it's not the end of the world. It's still, like, you're only siding it in matchups where it's going to be more beneficial to you.
Yeah. But if anything, these can just be 3 other random floodgates that like benefit
Yeah.
your deck and like
You could
let's say,
play.
crush another
There's
deck.
there's not a lot of floodgates this deck can play per se. It's more like format dependent. And then the last card.
Oh, it's a chuckle for.
unironically. Yes. It's Witch's Strike.
Oh lord. Actually,
Which
Matteo,
is
you never
strike.
explained to me what this thing does, man. Like, what does it do for your deck?
It honestly is just... It has
Big bean.
very niche uses.
I
But
can
the
tell.
ones
I
that
can
it
tell.
does have good uses against, you just win the game immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing... The most prevalent example is I was playing against a musket player. I knew he had the monster negate in hand, and I was going first, right? So I set 4, and I have my tour guide in hand that I didn't want to normal summon. Because if he has the negate, it ends my turn. So on the next turn, I activate a spell trap. He negates it. I flip Witch's Strike, and he concedes.
Ooh.
It sounds really gimmicky.
I mean, yes.
But
Yes, it does.
it sounds very gimmicky, right? But it comes up more than you'd realize. Because, fun fact, this thing is on resolution, so you can use it against counter traps, which is actually pretty big. Obviously, the only one you can't use it against is Red Reboot, but yeah, no, if your opponent, if you're going second against someone, right, and they have 1 to 2 negates on board, you can set your whole hand, do nothing, and then say, okay, go. And then you start flipping spell traps. If they ever negate one and they don't have an extra negate left, you flip Witch's Strike and you win immediately.
That's actually really insane. What the heck?
It also is a very good card against Eldritch Invoked. Because if they Mechaba, you can flip Witch's Strike and completely end their entire career.
Ooh.
Or if they Golden Land you, it's just... The whole deck is just anti-Eldritch, if I'm being honest.
Anti-Eldritch. Yeah, so
Then
you got a
it
pretty
makes my
well
job a
packaged
lot
side deck here. Yeah.
I will say, Cosmics, if you want, you can play Lightning Storm. I'm trying to keep this in my price range because I don't have Lightning Storms.
Yeah. I mean, well, this is the one. This is the list.
Yeah, you can
that
easily
wins
replace anti-magic
X1.
arrows with really any other generic. Like, you could replace it with Twin if you really want to. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for this profile. I think it's really sick. If you guys want to see some of the replays and, you know, maybe even other duels with this deck, let me know and I'll grab Matteo, force him to do some replays. Anything else you want to say, bro?
One thing I did
Any
want to mention
shoutouts?
really quick. The shoutout, I don't know if there's really any shoutouts.
Shout out to
shout
Richard
out-
Zhang, Dino Boy, just sitting in this call
Yeah,
patiently
he's
muted.
just sitting in the call waiting for his turn to do a deck profile. I was the only thing I wanted to say about this deck when it comes to one ruling I wanted to touch on really quick. A lot of people don't realize it.
Is it why
there's
doesn't
there's
the
two
BA get
rulings.
destroyed?
No. There's 2 really big rulings, right? The first ruling is that backjack, when you excavate 3, you don't show them to your opponent.
Okay.
Which is actually a really big deal because they don't get to see what card is going to be your interaction.
That's actually really
the other thing is the BA doesn't die.
The BA doesn't die. The amount of times I've seen it, it's tragic.
I'm going to, like, I feel like I'm in Dante's Inferno at this point. The number of times people have asked me, why doesn't the BA die? It's really painful. If you want to see some replays, or maybe if you want me to try and tinker with the deck a little more, let me know down below. If you have any suggestions as well, let me know.
Yeah, of course. Once again, Matteo, thank you for coming through and showing us the spice. I really liked it. I hope everyone else enjoys it. And you know what? I'll catch you guys later.